What if the biggest royal scandal was never about money, renovations, or royal protocol at all? For years, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were relentlessly criticized over Frogmore Cottage, a home they renovated, paid back in full, and eventually left behind. Headlines exploded. Commentators raged. The public was told to be outraged. But now, reports suggest Frogmore Cottage could undergo yet another round of renovations. And suddenly, the outrage has vanished. So here's the question. Was it ever really about the house? Welcome back. Today we're diving into the latest reports surrounding Frogmore Cottage and a fascinating question that's exposing what many people believe is one of the biggest double standards in modern royal coverage. Why was there wall-to-wall criticism when Harry and Meghan renovated the property, yet barely a whisper when new changes are reportedly being considered now? We'll look at the history of Frogmore Cottage, the controversy surrounding its renovations, the media narrative that developed around Meghan Markle, and why some observers believe this story was never truly about taxpayers or property costs. Let's get into it. The house that never left the headlines. Frogmore Cottage has become one of the most talked about homes in royal history. Originally located within the Windsor estate, the property became the official UK residence of Prince Harry and Meghan after their marriage. At the time, the cottage wasn't the polished royal retreat many people imagine today. The building consisted of multiple separate units and reportedly required extensive work before it could function as a family home. Harry and Meghan were newly married. They were preparing for a growing family. And Frogmore was intended to serve as their long-term UK base. On paper, it seemed like a straightforward renovation project. But in reality, it became something much bigger. Because almost immediately, the house itself stopped being the story. The people living inside it became the story. And that changed everything. When renovations became a national obsession, one of the most remarkable things about the Frogmore controversy is how quickly ordinary renovation work became front-page news. Suddenly, every alleged detail was treated like breaking news. Stories circulated about luxury upgrades, expensive furnishings, exotic requests, and even some truly bizarre claims that sounded more like movie sets than home renovations. Many people will remember reports describing extravagant additions supposedly being demanded by Meghan. Some stories became so exaggerated that they bordered on the absurd. Yet those stories spread rapidly. Why? Because they fit a narrative that was already being built. The public wasn't simply being told that renovations were happening. They were being encouraged to view those renovations as evidence of entitlement, excess, and extravagance. The problem? Much of the reporting often relied on anonymous sources, speculation, or details that were never fully substantiated. And eventually, one major fact got lost in the noise. Harry and Meghan later repaid the renovation costs in full. Yet even after that repayment, the criticism never truly disappeared. Because by that point, the house wasn't the issue anymore. The narrative had already taken on a life of its own. The double standard question. Here's where things get interesting. Recent reports suggest Frogmore Cottage could potentially be altered again. Some accounts indicate the property may even be subdivided into multiple units once more. And yet, where is the outrage? Where are the daily headlines? Where are the endless television debates? Where are the demands for accountability? For many observers, this silence raises an uncomfortable question. If the original criticism was genuinely about costs and taxpayer concerns, shouldn't those same concerns apply now? After all, we're talking about the very same property, the very same building, the very same royal estate. Yet the emotional intensity surrounding the story appears dramatically different. And that contrast is exactly why this conversation has resurfaced. Because critics argue that the outrage wasn't driven by the property itself. It was driven by who happened to be living there. The Meghan factor. Whether someone supports Meghan Markle or not, one thing is difficult to deny. She became one of the most heavily scrutinized public figures in the world. Almost every aspect of her life generated headlines. Her clothing, her body language, her food choices, her family relationships. Even ordinary personal decisions often became major news stories. And that's where Frogmore Cottage entered a much larger conversation. Many commentators argue that Meghan became a symbol onto which people projected frustrations, assumptions, and biases. Some viewed her as a disruptive outsider. Others viewed her as a convenient target. And still others believed she represented changes certain institutions were uncomfortable embracing. Regardless of where people stand politically or culturally, the scale of the scrutiny was extraordinary. Because very few public figures face criticism over virtually everything they do. Yet for years, Meghan seemed to operate under a completely different set of rules. And Frogmore Cottage became one more example frequently cited in that debate. The Prince Andrew comparison. Another reason this story continues generating discussion involves comparisons with Prince Andrew. After Harry and Meghan left Frogmore Cottage, reports emerged that the property was considered as a possible residence for Andrew. That comparison immediately sparked debate. Supporters of Harry and Meghan pointed out what they viewed as a glaring inconsistency. On one side, a couple who repaid renovation costs and stepped away from royal duties faced years of criticism. On the other side stood a royal figure whose controversies have generated significant public concern. Yet discussions about housing arrangements seem to produce vastly different reactions. Whether people agree with that comparison or not, it's easy to understand why some observers see it as evidence of unequal treatment. Because public outrage often appears selective, and selective outrage tends to attract attention. Was it ever really about money? At the heart of this debate lies a simple question. Was Frogmore Cottage ever actually about money? Or was money simply the easiest argument to make? When people become emotionally invested in a public figure, positively or negatively, almost any topic can become a battleground. A house renovation becomes a scandal. A wardrobe becomes a controversy. A family disagreement becomes a global headline. And once those narratives take hold, facts often become secondary. That's why stories like Frogmore continue resurfacing years later. Because they reveal how media narratives are created, how public opinion forms, and how easily a property dispute can evolve into something far larger than bricks and mortar. The bigger lesson. Perhaps the biggest takeaway from the Frogmore story isn't about Harry, or Meghan, or even the royal family. It's about perspective. When we hear headlines about public figures, it's worth asking ourselves a few questions. Do we have the full story? Are we reacting to facts? Or are we reacting to a narrative someone else created? And most importantly, would we feel the same way if different people were involved? Those questions matter because consistency is the foundation of fairness. If a principle only applies to certain individuals, then maybe it isn't really a principle at all. Maybe it's something else. And that's exactly why discussions surrounding Frogmore Cottage continue to resonate long after Harry and Meghan moved out. At the end of the day, Frogmore Cottage is just a house. But the way people react to that house reveals a lot about media coverage, public perception, and the ongoing debate surrounding Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think the criticism surrounding Frogmore Cottage was genuinely about taxpayer money and renovations? Or do you believe the reaction would have been very different if Harry and Meghan's names had never been attached to the property? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss future royal news and analysis. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.